Hey, I'm Courtney Waterman, your tutor. Lover of anime, manga, and math. And you just tuned into another session of Tutor Me Sempai. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're jumping into a 7th grade topic, alternate angles. Now, if you're new to my channel, I'll be putting time codes in for this video in the description box below. So use that to skip ahead to whatever part of the video you think is most interesting. As always, if you have any questions about what you see today, or even your own homework, you can always put it in the comment box below, or visit me on my Facebook page, @Tutor Me Sempai, and tell me all about it there. Today's video will be rather short, so leave a like, smash the subscribe, and let's get started. So if you saw my previous video on corresponding angles, your alternate angles are going to be formed in the exact same way. As long as you have two straight lines intersected by this special third line, remember this has a special name. Now, if you saw my last video, forgive me, I mispronounced this one. It wasn't traversal. This is actually the transversal. Transversal. That third line that intersects your two straight lines is called the transversal. So, two lines, two straight lines, they don't have to be parallel. Crossed over by a transversal is going to generate 8 angles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we already saw in that previous video that of these 8 angles, you're going to have pairs of corresponding angles. I'm here to tell you today that of these 8 angles, you're also going to have pairs of alternate angles. So not only will this form corresponding angle pairs, but they're also going to form alternate angle pairs. So now that we know how they're formed, let's jump into how to find them. Now your alternate angles are going to be broken down to 2 different types. You're going to have your alternate interior angles, and you're also going to have your alternate exterior angles. I'm going to abbreviate it as alt-int for short and alt-ext for short. So alternate interior and alternate exterior. We're going to find the pairs that are going to be either one of these two. But first, let's start with alternate interior angles. Now the name, just like how we did for corresponding, is going to give us some hint as to where these pairs are. However, there's something that is not in the name that I want you to make sure you keep note of, keep in the back of your head when you're trying to find these pairs. And that is, whenever you're trying to find a pair of alternate interior, alternate exterior, the corresponding ones that we talked about before, you're going to have to pick one from the top section and one angle from the bottom section to make your pair. What I mean by that, you're going to have 4 angles up here and 4 angles down here. You have to pick one from here and one from here. Never pick 2 from the top or 2 from the bottom to find corresponding, to find alternate interior, or to find alternate exterior. You're going to have to pick one from the top and then one from the bottom. That's not necessarily obvious from the names. However, that is necessary for you to understand what we're actually trying to do here. So this is going to be our top. I'm going to just kind of label that top. And this is going to be our bottom. Label this bottom. And make sure when you're finding these pairs, you have one up here and one down here. That's a little pro tip for you. So now that we have that out the way, let's look at the name, alternate interior. This is, like I said, a roadmap, a little clue as to how to find these pairs. Now, alternate, what's that first word? What are you seeing when you think of alternate? Well, I'm thinking, personally, alternate means opposite or switching. So if I have it in my left hand, I alternate my hands. I have it in my right hand now, in my opposite hand. Let's say you are walking down the street and you have to go on the alternate side of the street. If you're on the left hand side of the street, now you're going on the right hand side of the street. You're on the opposite side of the street. So alternate, I'm thinking opposites or, switching and stuff like that. Now interior. Interior might be, pretty straightforward. Interior means inside, right? So putting everything together. We already know our top and bottoms, but putting everything together, we're going to be looking at 2 angles, one up here, one down here, that are going to be inside, and they're going to be opposites of one another. Well, the inside is going to be this area in here. So you're going to have your 2 lines, right? They don't have to be parallel, but you're going to have your 2 lines, and sandwiched between those 2 lines is going to be your interior of this graph. So we're not going to look at anything up here or anything down here. We're only focusing on the 4 angles 1, 2, 3, and 4 that are inside these two lines. So we have angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, and angle 4 in the interior. So we already have the interior set. Now we got to find the alternate. Now remember, opposite. 1. What's opposite of 1? Is 3 opposite of 1? No. That's on the same side, right? We haven't switched over anything. We had 1 on this side and 3 is on this side. Now 2, it's technically opposite, right? But remember, we had our pro tip. We need 1 from the top and 1 from the bottom. So we can't have 2 in the same area. This has to be only 1 up here. So 2, although it's alternate, it's not quite what we're looking for. So the only one left is 4. And look at it. If you think about it this way, when you jump over the transversal, on the opposite side of the transversal, you're going to have 1 and 4 being opposite one another. And they're both interior, so we know that this pair, angle 1 and angle 4, are going to be our alternate interior angles. Now, those aren't the only ones. We see that 2 and 3 are also going to fit that same mold. They are opposite this transversal, and they're also in the interior between these two lines. So angle 2 and angle 3 are going to be our alternate interior pair as well. Now there are no more angles inside, so we found both the pairs that are going to be our alternate interior. Let's move on to alternate exterior. I've added a few more numbers to this graph so we can fill out all 8 angles that we formed when we drew it. So we have 5, 6, 7, 8 down here. And we're going to do the same exact thing. We already know that alternate is telling us that we have to be opposite, and we're going to be opposite this transversal. But instead of having interior, we're going to be looking at the exterior. Now, where is the exterior? That's going to be everything outside those two lines now, right? So we're not looking at anything inside, everything outside those two lines. So the 5 and the 6 and the 7 and the 8 are going to be outside these two lines. So that's what we're going to be focusing on when we're trying to find our alternate exterior angles. Now, if you have paper, you can kind of block out some things. So we focus on what we need to focus on. I'm going to use some help here to block out the angles inside. I don't want to get rid of them because I want to make sure we're keeping that constant reference here, but we're going to block them. So you only look at the angles we need to focus on. So we have 5. Let's do the same thing we did for alternate interior. 5. What's going to be the opposite of 5? 6? No. Although, yes, it's on the opposite side of this, but it's not what we talked about needing. We need 1 from the top and 1 from the bottom. 5 and 6 are both from the top, so it's not the alternating angle that we're looking for. How about 7? No. Although it's in the bottom, it's not alternate. It's on the same side of the transversal. Both of them are on the left side of the transversal. How about 8? 8 is good because it's on the bottom and it's on the opposite side of the transversal. 5 is on the left, 8 is on the right. So angle 5 and angle 8 are going to be alternate exterior. And likewise, angle 6 and angle 7 are going to be alternate exterior angles as well because they're the same thing. They're both going to be on the outside and they're alternating each other. And just like we had something special happen when we had parallel lines instead of just any two straight lines, when we had parallel lines intersected by the transversal for corresponding angles, something special happens for alternate angles as well. Let's see what happens. So I could just tell you what the special thing is, but that's no fun. And I don't want you to forget it the moment you stop watching this video. So you're gonna help me derive the special thing that happens when we have parallel lines. And to do that, you're gonna need to remember the concept that we talked about in our corresponding angle video and our vertical angles. So those two things are gonna help us derive the special thing that happens for alternate interior or alternate exterior angles. So let's start with 1. We're going to start with 1 here. Angle 1. If we start at angle 1 and we're trying to figure out what angle is corresponding with 1, what do we have? Corresponding to 1, we have angle 5. So I'm going to circle angle 5 here. Now, we know when you have parallel lines, right, corresponding angles are congruent. So we know 1 and 5 are going to be congruent. Cool. Let's take it a step further. What do we know about vertical angles? Vertical angles are also congruent, right? And what's the vertical angle to angle 5? Angle 8. Angle 8 is vertical to angle 5. So if angle 5 and angle 8 are going to be vertical angles, thus congruent, and angle 5, angle 1 are going to be corresponding angles for parallel lines, are also going to be congruent. What do we know about angle 1 and angle 8? Angle 1 and angle 8 are also going to be congruent. So what are, I'm going to just get rid of this circle here. So we're just focusing just on angle 1 and angle 8. What are angle 1 and angle 8 for this video? Angle 1 is going to be an exterior angle, and so is angle 8. And it seems like they're on opposite sides. So we have an alternate exterior rule here. Whenever we have these parallel lines, your alternate exterior angles seem to be congruent because of what we know about corresponding angles and vertical angles. The same thing is going to be true for 2 here. Now 2 is going to be corresponding to 6. And 6 is going to be vertical to 7. And we know that vertical angles are going to be congruent. And for parallel lines, 2 and 6, these corresponding angles are also going to be congruent. So we have angle 2 is congruent to angle 7. So we talked about the alternate exterior angles, but how about alternate interior angles? Are we going to have something similar happen for those? Let's start once again with angle 1. Angle 1, and we're going to find corresponding, right? Corresponding angle to angle 1 is going to be angle 5. And we said angle 1 and angle 5 are going to be what? Congruent because they're parallel lines. So we know that angle 1 and angle 5 are already congruent. Now we're going to look at vertical angles, but instead of going from 5 and looking at vertical angles, we're going to start back at 1 here. 1 is going to be vertical to which angle? Angle 4 here, right? So we know that 1 and 4 are vertical angles, thus they are going to be congruent. So if 1 is congruent to 4 and 1 is also congruent to 5, what do we know about 4 and 5? Well, angle 4 is going to be congruent to angle 5. And what do we know about these angles for this video? They're going to be alternate interior angles now, right? You see, we're focusing on the inside of these two lines, alternate interior. They're opposite the transversal. So we know that alternate interior angles are going to be congruent as well whenever you have these parallel lines. And remember, I can't stress this enough. This is only true because they are parallel lines. So just like 4 and 5 are going to be congruent, 3 and 6 are also going to be congruent for the same thing. So you have 3 and 6 are going to be congruent because if you look at it, 2 is going to be vertical to 3 and corresponding to 6. So 2 and 3 are going to be congruent because they're vertical. 2 and 6 are going to be congruent because they're parallel lines and they're corresponding. Thus, 3 and 6 are going to be congruent. So for parallel lines, it doesn't matter if you have alternate exterior pairs or alternate interior pairs. Your pair of alternate angles are going to be congruent with one another. So I hope you have followed on today's examples, and I hope you see that finding your alternate interior or your alternate exterior angles are going to be pretty simple as long as you break down their names. Their names are pretty much a cheat sheet for you, so take advantage of that. But if you have any question about what you saw today or even your own homework, remember you can always put in the comment box below or visit my Facebook page at Tutor Me Sempai and tell me all about it there. If you haven't done so already, remember to leave that like. It really helps the channel by letting YouTube know that you found this video helpful. And if you found it helpful, so can someone else. So leave a like, hit the notification bell, smash the subscribe button, and share the video with a friend. Well, that's all the time I have for today. I really hope this helped with your homework, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week. I'm Courtney, and this is another session of Tutor Me Sempai.